As always, welcome to Destination
Hey,
Sasquatch.
what's up?
I am Reggie Bird.
I'm Paul Bow, and today we're talking about the Billy Ape.
Yes,
Why?
yes. Basically, we want to get the point across is that after the discovery of the Billy Ape, it's not far fetched. It's not a leap by any means to consider Sasquatch a living being, and
hmm
a primate that's walking around the forest of the United States of America.
Yeah, why can't you make the connection? I mean, here's it's crazy for us, and we see this on a regular basis where people will walk into our store and still give us this look of, "Are you freaking serious? You believe in Bigfoot?" It's like I feel like looking at them saying, "Are you freaking serious? You don't?
Exactly.
At least you're not open minded. Have you? It's almost like you want to ask them where they've been. Like,
Hmm.
have you been under a rock all this time? Go online and do a tiny bit of research,
Just a
and I
little bit.
promise you'll be influenced enough to where you're at least open minded.
Hmm.
But look at the Billy Ape. What are we talking about here?
I
For
mean,
those of you who don't know, Billy Ape, also known as Bondo,
hmm
for hundreds of years, tribespeople in that area have been talking about and trying to convince the scientific community of the existence of upwards of 6 foot tall. Now, remember, in comparison, most chimpanzees are talking about 3 foot
three,
tall,
yeah.
right? And still at 3 feet tall, extraordinarily strong,
Oh,
dexterous,
yes.
all those things. But we're talking about upwards of 6 feet tall, 400 and some odd pound
Sheesh.
chimpanzee. Um, it's almost a kind of a disservice to even consider it a chimpanzee. We might as well call it a relatively new
Hmm.
hybrid. And then that maybe opens people's minds a little bit as far as that connection between that and a
I think
potential for
so.
a Sasquatch. But it's like there was a documentary. We'll put a link to the documentary down below. It was on Amazon. I
Hmm.
had to pay $2 for it on Amazon. Well worth it.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic documentary about essentially about the Billy Apes and
Hmm.
about number one, their size, because that's insane. The 6 foot
6
tall.
foot. I know we're going to get into that, but that's Sasquatch.
Yeah, you're basically looking at a regular little old Sasquatch there.
Hmm.
And we'll talk about of course, the power, but also was probably the most interesting thing about the Billy Ape and the discovery of the Billy Ape. The tribes people called them lion killers, right? And the reason that they said they swore, and of course, you still have people like these poor people. They're saying, "Oh, there's a 6 foot tall chimpanzee that likes to walk upright." Oh no, there's not. For 100 years, no, there's not. No, there's not. No, there's not. Now we discover it, and that's fine. Okay, now we'll
Hmm.
recognize it. And now they're saying, well, it's a lion kill. No, it's not. No, it's not. No, yeah. They're just like, come on. What do we have to do? And that's the same feeling that we get in the Sasquatch community. Is like, what the heck do we have to
Exactly.
do
Yeah.
to prove to you that Sasquatch does exist? That not all of this stuff is a hoax. It'd be the absolute biggest hoax on the face of the planet. But the craziest thing about the Billy Ape is the fact that they eat meat, they hunt, and that's a big stretch for the ape species,
I
right?
even heard that they make nest on the ground,
Right,
like bedded nest, or like we haven't seen that before.
right. That's a huge comparison to what we believe that we know that Sasquatch makes nests on the
Hmm.
ground. And of course, we've got juveniles in trees and
Hmm.
things of that nature. The vast majority of Sasquatch are going to nest on the ground. They've also had, even with the Billy Apes, even some sort of a showing that they're trying to build structures,
Oh,
right?
wow.
So you're kind of getting those teepee-like
Hmm.
structures,
Hmm.
even to. It's almost like you see this evolution beginning within those
Exactly.
species, to where, I mean, that they're essentially just acting more and more human-like as they progress.
I'm just baffled because I mean, if you study this thing, it has the somewhat the proportions, the habitat. It does the same things we're correlating to Bigfoot or Sasquatch behavior, and we're seeing this real time with a real living and breathing animal,
hmm
and then to automatically just say without a doubt Sasquatch doesn't exist is just it's just too big of a leap for me.
We got all sorts of connections between the two. And, one of the things that people get into is like, well, why do they look different? Why do, we talked about this before. I don't give a damn whether it's controversial or not. You got Todd Standing's video footage. I don't care what you say, but you've got skunk ape footage
Yes.
that look a little bit different. Then you've got footage from the Pacific Northwest. You got the Paul Freeman footage, of course, Patty,
Yes.
and they have a similar look to them.
Mm-hmm.
You got the Independence Day footage, which looks a lot like Patty, a lot like the Paul Freeman footage. But down south, when you're talking about a skunk ape
Yeah.
or say even just whether you want to call it Sasquatch down there, they look different.
Yes.
Well, why do they look different? Well, what the hell? You expect them all to look exactly the same? If you look at the Billy Ape, none of them look exactly the same. These scientists that have been following them for 20 years in this documentary that I was referring to, they know them by name. They know them by sight, right? And what was really interesting about that is that you look at that documentary. I've mentioned before on other podcasts that we we love to study gorilla videos and ape documentaries, right? What was really cool about this is the same exact behaviors that we see in gorillas and silverbacks and lowlands, where the scientists, the researchers will go into that area and finally kind of throughout a long courtship period, they're kind of allowed into the group, right? They're accepted. These scientists are to where, okay, fine. Now we allow you in a little bit to monitor us and we're not so dang skittish. But then they had the exact same situation where after a long period of time of leaving, when they came back, those Billy Apes recognized them.
Wow.
So you got a couple of components here. It's like, well, why would they kill lions? Why would they kill other chimps? Why would they eat monkeys and hunt and do all these things? But yet they see a human and they're, of course, standoffish. They wanted at all costs to avoid the scientists when they went in to film this documentary over the course of 20 years. But then they come back and immediately accepted back in. They remembered exactly who they were, which is our theory on Sasquatch and why we have so much success in the Blue Mountains, why Reggie and I have so much success in the Blue Mountains. It's because of the fact that when we go up there, they seem to come to us.
Yes, it's like they recognize us by, I don't know if it's our scent or our voice or just some
or by sight.
Or by sight, yeah.
They may very well just know us by sight. It may be sound. It may be all these different things. We try to remain consistent. We every time we go up there, we try new things to a degree. But at the same time, from a scientific approach, we don't want to try too many variables because you test too many variables, you don't know which one hit.
You don't know
right?
which one to look at.
And so we don't change a whole lot. So we do have probably 99% consistency when we do go up there. And so it's a strong likelihood that they do recognize us by voice, by smell, by, we try all those things to remain relatively consistent. By sound, we try to remain relatively consistent every once in a while, especially if people will go up there with us. They'll want us to do some of the more cliche things, and we'll do those things for them, kind of a little bit more towards entertainment. But at the same time, we're trying new things. We don't really care too much about throwing in something every once in a while. But it is interesting when you see this repetitive behavior over and over from the ape species where, we're extremely standoffish, but once we know you, you can come back 2 years later, we know who you are. That's crazy.
Yeah, which makes total sense of, different researchers going in and having consistent, evidence and consistent, behavior that's, while they're at there's, hot spots. And I think that's just because, Sasquatch have come to allow them to be there. They feel comfortable when they're there. And it makes things a lot easier by just being consistent when you're up there.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know what I was thinking about the other day, and it's something that we may want to clarify with the audience. First of all, when we do these podcasts, we want to make sure that the audience understands our perspective and where we stand on our beliefs in Sasquatch. We don't believe in Sasquatch. We know that Sasquatch exists, and I know that, okay, we're just playing semantics here. No, there is a big difference. When we're going up there with belief, there's a sense of faith, and there's a sense of trust and all that. We don't have any of that. We know there is 100% guaranteed knowledge. Almost like I know when I wake up in the morning, my hand is going to be attached to my arm. there is 100% guarantee that Sasquatch exists. It's
Mhm.
not a I believe, it's an I know for
Yes.
100% fact that Sasquatch does exist. And so when we have some of these conversations and when we look at Billy Apes, of course, we get a little bit frustrated with the lack of open mindedness.
Mhm.
And so when you look at some of these things like Billy Apes, people might think that it's, I don't know, yeah, it's fun. It's fun to look at. We look at it, we get a little bit frustrated,
Yes.
right?
Oh.
Because we can see that connection. Yeah.
And another thing I wanted to bring up is that some people always challenge the intelligence of Sasquatch, saying it's just if it's just a big dumb animal, you would see a lot of you would see it all the time. It
Oh
would
yeah,
make mistakes.
you would find it.
But then we saw that video where I can't remember if it was a Billy Ape or not, but he was trying to exchange um, some a different items for the banana or something that gentleman had in the zoo, and it
Mm-hmm.
kept trying to go up and oh, you don't want this? I'll break.
Dude, you remember the story that I told you back in the day when Samantha and I we took our family to the Seattle Zoo,
Uh huh.
and we're standing above the orangutan. What would you call it? Enclosure?
Yes.
But it wasn't enclosure because in the Seattle Zoo there's orangutans and you can walk on top of them, so to speak. It kind of goes around the perimeter, around the top,
Yes.
kind of like a I don't know what you call it, a little walkway around the
Mm-hmm.
top. And so you can see the orangutans down in there. They can't get completely up to you, but they get really close.
Oh.
And there was this massive orangutan in there, and there's this guy that's standing there with a bagel.
Yes.
And this orangutan gets kind of like there's this appeal towards this bagel. You can see in his eyes like I want that bagel.
Yeah.
And so at first he's reaching out his extremely long stretched arms and he's like kind of motioning for the guy to, give me the bagel. And so he sits there and we watch this orangutan try to get this bagel from this guy just very gently, and you could just see in his eyes and body language and the motions, I want the bagel.
Yeah.
Please give me the bagel, right? And so we're sitting there, and before you know it, a little bit of a crowd draws to this guy, and the orangutan goes down, it climbs down this little tree, climbs down in his toys, got this massive hammock and stuff, goes all the way down, and I can't remember what he grabbed at first, he or she, I don't even remember. But I think it was like a stick.
Yeah.
Okay, it goes down on the ground and grabs a stick and comes all the way back up and hands the stick, reaches out and hands the stick as an offering
Wow, that's
to
crazy.
the guy with the bagel and sits there and holds it and holds it and holds it, kind of like, please, I'm trading you a stick. I'll
That's
give you the stick. You give me the bagel.
that's
Right.
just intelligence, man.
This orangutan went back and forth, grabbing everything it could to try to trade for this bagel. And that level of intelligence to know, and that's another thing that a lot of people will talk about is the gifting,
Mhm. Mhm.
gifting for Sasquatch. And that, full disclosure, that's something that we really haven't done. We've put out bagels, and we
Yeah.
haven't been consistent with
Yes.
that.
Yes.
We haven't put a whole lot of thought into it, but after watching that, and after watching the fact that on these gorilla
Mhm.
documentaries, they are leaving gifts
Mhm.
because they and the scientists truly believe that these gorillas they do associate that trade
Mhm.
agreement, like you're a friend because you gave me something.
Exactly.
Isn't that weird?
That is crazy. I mean, it's like a human characteristic right there.
Oh, very much so. Very much so. That idea of bartering.
Mhm.
No other animal, a dog or a cat isn't like, well, I'll give you this if you give me this. No, they're like, give me that.
Yes.
I don't understand the concept of trade.
Mhm.
But these animals, I kid you not, I sat there and watched that orangutan negotiate with this guy,
Wow.
bringing up different items all the time to try to get that. Poor thing never got the bagel. I was like, seriously, dude, give him the bagel. Give the guy the bagel. But he never got the bagel. But the just that idea. And so I know one of these things that we've talked about for this upcoming Sasquatch research
Mhm.
season, we're gonna try to devise, and we, you know what, we would love to hear from the audience members. Put some comments anywhere you can to us, and we read those
Oh,
comments.
yes, for sure.
Put some comments in there. Have you had any success with gifting
Mhm.
and an exchange? If so, what was it? we all know the standards. I left them sweets, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to hear everything.
Yeah.
What didn't work. And if you've never tried it, if you're out there and you're just kind of learning about Sasquatch
Mm-hmm.
and you just like the idea of the topic, maybe you're a believer. What would you do? Maybe you've never gifted to a
Mm-hmm.
Sasquatch or a gorilla, but you don't have to come up with ideas of what you would do.
Exactly.
Just kind of think of that childlike human-like behavior of swapping for something. And I say childlike, that's not even right because, man, that's advanced.
Mm-hmm.
That's some advanced
Yes,
behavior.
for sure.
But yeah, leave us some comments and tell us what would you do, and we'll try out some of those theories this summer during our Sasquatch season that's
Yeah,
coming
we're
up here
all in
real
this
soon.
together, and we want to get this figured out together. So definitely, like Paul was saying, leave some comments. Help us out.
Yeah. Yeah, and dude, that's a really good point, brother. Because I was like, what? One of the things that people are surprised about when they listen to our podcast, or even when they talk to us, is how
Yes.
much we share.
Yes. Yes.
Because a lot of people in the Sasquatch community are kind of
Oh yeah.
tight-lipped when it comes to their tactics,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know whether it's they're afraid that somebody's going to be like, "Oh, that's stupid." No, I don't
Yeah.
care.
Yeah.
I really don't care. There's no such thing as a stupid because there's no roadmap.
No.
But one of the things that we like doing is we like to share what we're doing because we are in this together,
Mm-hmm.
and we just want to prove the existence of this animal,
Exactly.
regardless of whether it's us or whether it's somebody else. Prove this. Prove the thing is real. And if we can do that together, I mean, obviously chances of success go way up. That's one of the things. Like we were one of the first that we knew of that were starting to do gorilla sounds and
Oh
ape
yes,
sounds
with
through
the
our
call.
electronic collar in the mountains.
Yep.
And that I feel like we've made a lot of progress in that
Mm-hmm.
regard. And that's something else that maybe works really well for us because we get really good
Oh
success
yes.
from
Every
that.
time we do that.
And we were playing Gibbons noises years and
Oh,
years
yeah.
ago, and we because Gibbons are very vocal,
Mhm.
and so we thought that's a pretty dang good. And you have to remember with my background in calling coyotes
Mhm.
and really practicing that. Maybe we'll do a whole podcast topic about how that works and
Mhm.
luring in a predator and things of that nature, because you go right out into coyote hunting and you think, oh, just howl at them
Yeah.
and they're gonna come right at. No,
See, that's what I think.
you howl you howl at the wrong time, you're gonna do the exact opposite, right? You got to
Ah.
know which type of howls, whether it's denning season, whether it's breeding, whatever. You've got to understand how to behave or how the coyote is behaving
Mhm.
at that time, and their barks are different. You look at a bark in general is typically seen as something very aggressive. So you can howl with a little bark at the end,
Wow.
and the coyote would think that's that's a little bit of aggression, right?
Yes.
You're kind of ticked off. You're being a little bit territorial, especially at the wrong time of the season. So typically we'll start off with something that's called a siren howl, and it's just that woo. It's very and to them that's a sign of comfort, calm. It's okay.
Uh-huh.
I can come out. We typically want to start with a female, right? Because that's less
Really?
threatening. Absolutely. It's and so oftentimes sets, what we'll call them, will begin with a female siren howl. And that's just a very calming, hey, I'm a female coyote. I'm out here. I'm just letting you know, A, I'm here. I'm not a threat.
Uh-huh.
And it's okay. Everything is all right.
Wow.
But oftentimes you don't want to howl.
Mhm.
Oftentimes you just want to go straight in with a predator, or with a prey call, like a wounded rabbit call. Oftentimes, depending on maybe it's a denning set and you want to do a pup distress, but you got to set these up almost like a scenario. And so when we were going up there years ago doing Gibbons calls,
Uh-huh.
the volume is important, the type is important, and that's something that takes us, because I was fortunate enough to jump on. Oh gosh, some really famous Randy. Gosh, I can't remember the guy's name. Just really famous coyote callers,
Uh-huh.
howlers. I mean, champions. Um, I was fortunate enough to be able to kind of mimic those guys, and they've already done all the groundwork to figure out what these calls do when you do them, what coyotes are thinking, right?
A lot more
We-
complex than I thought it was, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it takes a while because people will go out and be like, "I howled like crazy," and they never came in. Well, yeah, that's because you were sitting there telling them to f off. But the same idea of that sensitivity would obviously, and it would even be heightened with the
Oh
Sasquatch,
yeah.
right?
Now that I think about it, it's
But everything is curious,
hmm
and everything is curious to the point where I think those vocalizations really do help.
hmm
I think you're more dangerous getting into trying to really mimic a Sasquatch. I think that's why we really do shy, and I know we do. We've done howls.
hmm
Oftentimes that's for the just for the people that are with us or whatever. But you try to mimic a coyote, you're
hmm
running the danger. You're in the danger zone. They know their voice better than anybody,
Oh,
and
gotcha.
they know what they mean,
hmm
right? Whereas you do a rabbit squeal,
hmm
and they'll come to dinner, right? But Sasquatch is probably the exact same way. Whereas you try to really mimic a howl, and they're like, "Dude, are
Yeah.
you trying to kid?" That's like a Sasquatch trying to do a human voice,
Yes, it's probably even way more complex than the coyote, I would imagine. I
right?
mean, so
So when it comes to those vocalizations, you got to be careful.
yeah, it's just not this like you just don't go, and
Yeah.
then
And
that
and and
works.
and and same exact thing. Go back to that coyote analogy. You're not going to go out there and just blast on. You'll see this a lot of times with young, fresh hunters. They'll go out there and crank up the power on their electronic collar to 100 and just blast it out there because I want to get as far as I can. Well, no, that doesn't work, right? You've got to start out small and
hmm
graduate up and graduate up. Just because they don't come doesn't mean they don't hear you. I
Gotcha.
mean, so all of these things you have to think about when you're up there. So something that I would love to hear comments as far as the viewer goes. But the reason we started talking about this is that we want to share as many of our tips and tricks
Oh, for sure.
as because I don't I like to consider ourselves somewhat pioneers in the industry from certain perspectives,
hmm
but especially from that audio perspective.
Yeah.
Maybe we can lay some of the groundwork, and maybe we could do a whole podcast on like what to do when it comes to vocalizations, because maybe that is a huge part of our success, is
hmm
why we get so much interaction with
I
Sasquatch.
think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So maybe we can break that down a little bit further, but we want to give you a taste of that before you go out and because I think you see some of it on episode 1 of our YouTube channel.
hmm hmm
Yeah, don't just go out there and start blasting ape sounds that you find on the internet. It's not going to work,
No,
right? And you may do more damage to your research than you would have if you just made no sounds.
exactly.
So maybe we can help people out a little bit there and get them started as far as what you want to do for what we've seen over the course of the
hmm
last 8 to 10 years of mistakes that we've made, and our approaches with those audio recordings.
Yep.
Yeah. What do you got uh, lined up for Sasquatch research for the entire summer? We've got some good things in
Oh,
mind.
for sure. Yeah. I mean, nice little expedition coming up this summer. Can't quite get into details yet until they get all ironed out, but I'm hoping to come up. We are hoping to come up with some good evidence and some key locations for sure this summer.
Reggie does a lot of our bookings and a lot of like coordinating
hmm
with people in the Sasquatch community. Uh, Similarly, like we'll take somebody up there that's in the Sasquatch community the same way we want to do research. We can gain knowledge from these people,
Oh, for
right?
sure, easily.
And
Yeah.
so somebody else has been doing this, they come up there and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I picked up so much from you guys. Well, guess what? We're going to pick up a lot from you as
Yes.
well."
Exactly.
And so we've got a lot of those kind of things planned for this summer. It's going to be a big time
Oh yeah.
summer, and especially if all this stupid crap about we've got all sorts of weird stuff happening
hmm
with our viruses going around and all that kind
Yeah.
of weird stuff. So if we get shut down for a while, maybe we'll spend a little bit of extra time going real deep in the woods
Yeah.
and
Sounds like a plan to me, brother.
yeah, see if we can really get up close and personal with some Sasquatch behavior and maybe
hmm
get some amazing footage on film. Film's not our number one priority.
hmm
It really is research. We love research and behavior,
Yes.
but we'll see what we can do. As usual, we appreciate everyone tuning in.
Yes.
We
Thank you
want
so much, guys.
yeah, we want everybody to be safe, to be happy,
hmm
to treat their neighbor extremely well, to treat their fellow citizen extremely well, and to love the fact that we know that Sasquatch does exist. So we really do appreciate you tuning in.
Yes. Thank you. And don't forget to subscribe.
Yeah, buddy. All right, we'll talk to you later.